Hello and welcome to Movers and Shakers. I'm Ken Miller, back in the studio again, and my guest today is Lansing Public Works Director Mike Spickelmier. Mike, thanks for coming across the hall to do this. We are recording this interview in early May, so it's not too long before the warm weather street maintenance program starts up here in Lansing. Now, a lot of people have heard it described as mill and overlay. Talk about what those types of projects entail.
So mill and overlay is our primary way that we maintain our residential and arterial and collector streets in the city of Lansing. It's part of our pavement preservation program that includes things like crack sealing, pothole patching, and things of that nature. But the lion's share of the work is a mill and overlay. And the reason it's called a mill and overlay because it's a two-part process where we typically will mill off the top surface of existing oxidized asphalt and replace it with a new asphalt surface that typically we'd like to see last about 15 years, and that really gives us the most longevity for what we're trying to do. The first part is the milling part, and we talked a little bit about that in the connection
Right.
in an article this time. So the milling part it uses a large asphalt miller. It grinds the asphalt to a depth of between 1 inch and 2 inches, depending on what kind of profile we need to get. That is then collected by the dump trucks that will then take it to the asphalt plant, and a lot of times those millings are recycled back into asphalt. For the city of Lansing, we use what we call 10% wrap or 10% recycled asphalt product. So 10% of the asphalt that you see going down on the road was milled off a road somewhere else, usually in the metro area. The second part is the overlay part, and this is where the hot mix asphalt arrives to the site near almost 300 degrees Fahrenheit when it comes out. It's then placed in what's referred to as a asphalt laydown machine, and it is applied at a uniform thickness of, again, approximately usually about 2 inches is kind of the optimum thickness that we go for. And after it is laid down with the asphalt machine at the uniform thickness, it is then rolled with the compactor that comes through and then brings the density of the asphalt to the desired consistency. And after about 2 hours, you start getting to the point where, and of course environmental factors play into this, the hotter it is, the longer it takes for it to cool. But once it gets down around 120 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit, we start trying to open it back up for traffic. So unlike concrete, asphalt will allow for traffic to be back on the road surface in a more expeditious manner. And that's just typically how that goes.
From a historical perspective, and this is a little aside, but as somebody who's past 50 years old, I can remember when I was younger, and not just as a kid, but maybe when I was in my 20s, when you'd come up on a project where they were resurfacing a road, the process was a little bit different and it took a hell of a lot longer. How much time are we saving by using the mill and overlay process that you just described compared to maybe 20, 30 years ago?
The process is a little bit faster. I think there's efficiencies in the fact that the machines are larger and they've got more capability and more power. So we're probably saving 25% of a traditional asphalt maintenance application. There are some municipalities that use concrete, and the problem with the concrete, even with a high early strength concrete, you're going to be off the road for a day or two before you can even put traffic back on it. So we really try to. We do this, one, because we feel it's most economical for the residents of Lansing, and two, it also provides the quickest turnaround time for us. Now, that being said, the process doesn't happen all in one day. Typically what happens is after the road is milled, it is swept clean, and it'll stay in a milled configuration for a period of time depending on when the contractor can mobilize back onto it. So during the mill and overlay program, do expect to have to drive on a milled surface for potentially a few weeks.
Okay. All right, so let's move forward now. In fact, last night, the Lansing City Council approved the 2021 Mill and Overlay Program. So the key question now, and I'm sure people that are watching this and are interested in this, is which city streets are slated for work this summer?
So when you look in your connection, you can see the original slate of streets that was approved through the bid last night by the City Council. And in addition, we are looking at potentially expanding the mill and overlay program through some other streets that we're going to solicit pricing for and see if we can fit it within our budget. If so, we will then expand it. So just to kind of go through the list that was approved last night, if you look in the connection, or if you want to go to gis.lansingks.org, you can find an application on there that will show our mill and overlay program. And the streets that were adopted are First Terrace. This is just north of Olive Street, just east of K7, and in that same vicinity is Nina and Nina and
right.
First Street. That's all just north of the Petro Deli. That area will be worked. The old Stonecrest neighborhood is getting a lot of work. That includes South Valley, Maple, and Olive. In addition, we are soliciting prices to also do Bittersweet and Sage in that same neighborhood while we're there. We're hoping to gain some efficiencies in the fact that the contractor will already be on site and we won't have to pay for a mobilization, demobilization to maybe expand the program. Also looking at Pine Ridge. Pine Ridge is a little bit different in that it's not a traditional mill and overlay. Because there are no concrete curbs, we do not have to mill the surface in order to keep the profile the same. A lot of times what we do then, similar to what we did on DeSoto last year, is we will mill what they refer to as a header at the driveway, and then we'll actually just do almost a straight overlay over, and that'll, not only will it rejuvenate the surface, it will also provide a little bit thicker pavement, which gives us a little more life, especially with heavier vehicles like school buses and garbage trucks that drive up and down our streets that really do stress them more than a typical vehicle. In addition, we're also looking at doing McIntyre Road this year from 147th Street all the way to K7. And while we were there, we were going to pick up the section of 139th Street, as well as we've got up on the northeast side of town. We're going to be finishing A Street. We did 2 years ago. We did part of A Street. Now we're going to complete that. And then also we do work on alleys often, but it's not really an alley in this case. We're looking at surfacing Kane Drive, and at the same time we're working on the section of New Lawrence Drive just south of the city limits in conjunction with the Eisenhower project. What these are going to do is these are really going to remove the last of the remaining gravel roadways that the city maintains, and it is still our intention to continue the program that we've done for the last couple of years where we've actually been surfacing alleys with asphalt. We found some success in that. We did one over off Kansas, and then a couple years before that we did one in the northeast part of town. So that program will be continuing on.
Okay. All right. And I remember this well. It was a couple of years ago. We had a problem with a product that I believe is called Petromat. And residents who drove on 4H Road a couple of years back will remember that well. The resurfacing was, or the surface was kind of coming up. I guess we're having a similar problem, and you know I've driven it before. We're going to do something similar on West McIntyre, and that's Petromat there. You can kind of see it. It almost looks cloth-like. So what is Petromat exactly? Why was it used, and why didn't it work here?
So Petromat it's we were intending to use it as a way to extend the life of the pavement in an economical manner. Petromat was placed to underneath a chip seal. In this case, they used a Haydite chip seal, and they used a Petromat underneath that. And part of the reason to use a Petromat is, one, it gives you a little more longevity on your chip seal, and the other, it also is an attempt to reduce what they refer to as reflective cracking. So when you have a crack in the asphalt surface and you just put more asphalt on the top, there's often that crack that was there before in a year or two will crack back through.
Right.
We'll have to come in and crack seal it and fix that. So the Petromat was an attempt to get a little more life out of the road, because you know a chip seal is significantly less than a traditional overlay or a mill and overlay. So it was just a cost-effective way, and you know this stuff was all done after the economy, you know, after the recession in the late 2000s. So budgets hadn't recovered yet, and it was just a way to try to get a little more life out of the pavement. Why is it failing? One, age, McIntyre, and then 4H also. Also, Petromat is not a easy application to put down and put down well. The contractors that put them down are not used to doing it a lot, and as with anything, it's very technical, so if it's not almost perfect, the potential for failure can occur, and then if it's not consistent in its application, it is also the potential for failure. So on McIntyre, we did DeSoto last year, we did a strict overlay. We took the road, we put 2 inches more of asphalt. On McIntyre, we actually have to do a mill and overlay, and the reason for that is we have to remove the Petromat, because the Petromat has now created a failure plane of the asphalt. So if we were to just pave over the Petromat in its current configuration, there's the potential that we could again have a delamination of the mat from the existing surface, and that would lead to, with a 2-inch overlay, 2-inch deep potholes where it
Right.
does fail. So we're just trying to eliminate that, and we will look at some other solutions when we have some areas that have some reflective cracking that need to be considered, and maybe something where we do an in-house approach versus a contract approach, where we can make sure we take the time to make sure our installation is such that it's going to have the longest life.
Okay, all right, besides street maintenance, which you've just described, there are some other projects obviously on the docket for the rest of this year, and we've gotten a lot of questions, obviously a lot of interest because it's our busiest intersection. What's going to happen this summer, fall at Eisenhower and K7 or Main Street?
Yeah, so a lot's going on right now. The design is about 95, we might as well call it 99% complete. So we really have the design fleshed out. And so at this point, we actually have a bid on the street for the purchase of some of the equipment. Because there's the signal lights, the signal controllers, and the arms that go over the road that hold up the lights and the controllers, we've got a preliminary bid package on the street right now to pre-order that stuff so that we can get the long lead time items starting to be manufactured so that we can have them delivered in the fall. The plan is to bid the intersection project for the work later this year, and then we'll see what the contractor comes up with a schedule. When we have a date certain of our delivery date of that equipment, that really helps the contractor to gauge how he wants to build his schedule. And so we're just working to really accelerate the project. And so the K7 in Eisenhower is the big deal. And just to reiterate some of the things that are going to happen as part of the project, we're going to add some lanes, specifically on K7 at the intersection. We will add an additional left-hand turn lane for northbound traffic, which is that you see a lot of people queue up trying to go from northbound K7 to westbound
Right.
Eisenhower. We'll have a free flow right turn lane. So right now you see there's a right turn lane going directly into Quick Trip if you're heading southbound. That lane will be extended all the way to Eisenhower, and an additional lane in Eisenhower will be constructed so that you'll have essentially 3 lanes going southbound on Eisenhower, 2 of which are through lanes straight through to go past Tractor Supply, 1 of which will be a free flow right turn lane, which means if you get in that right turn, so during the queues that happen typically in the afternoon, you can get into that lane and you can execute a southbound to westbound movement without having to be impeded as much. I understand right turn on red still applies, but
Right.
you'll be able to continue those movements and hopefully free up the traffic flow as well as reduce the queuing.
It's an efficiency thing, right? Reduce the queuing. You're going to be able to, of course, while looking to your left so that you can make that right-hand turn, it's going to be more efficient. People are going to keep on moving. We're not going to have the stacking that we've had currently.
That's the ultimate design goal, yeah, to improve the efficiency of that intersection.
Okay, besides Eisenhower and K7, what else do we have going on?
Well, we're still moving forward on the DeSoto and 4H roundabout. The plans are, again, in about a 95% state. We've started some property acquisition stuff. There's a lot of, this project was submitted for MARC funding, but unfortunately it wasn't at the top of the list. However, there seems to be a lot of discussion about infrastructure projects in the future. We've done everything we can to continue to make sure this project maintains its what's called federal eligibility,
Right.
by making sure that we go through all the steps so that if federal funding did come available, that this would be probably one of the candidates that we'd want to focus on. So that's also on the project horizon.
Sure. And with roundabouts, and we understand this, there are people that love them and there are people that hate them. They are becoming more common. If you've gone to Lawrence, you've seen them. Baser has one. Let's be clear, though, if and when the roundabout down at 4H and DeSoto comes about, we will do everything we can from a social media standpoint, just a public relations standpoint, to put out information that shows people this is how this is going to be navigated. This is how you drive in a roundabout. We will make every opportunity. There's some great videos out there. You've seen them graphically that show you how to negotiate a roundabout.
Well, and it really is a traffic safety enhancement. It's that great step between a full-blown signal and a full four-stop. And we have quite a bit of traffic through that intersection. That intersection is unique in that it actually has multiple peaking times. Normally you get a rush hour, but this one, because of the proximity to the high school, gets a lot of that, as well as inexperienced drivers that will, you know, benefit from it. It really does make it safer, because when you enter the roundabout, you're only negotiating traffic from one, you know, one direction.
Right. Okay. All right. I've been speaking with Lansing Public Works Director Mike Spickelmier for Movers and Shakers. I'm Ken Miller.